Welcome to our speakers, our audience, and thank you for joining us. We have this, fantastic program every, quarter by India Employer Forum, and we had been learning a lot. And you know what? Today we have a, amazing topic. I'm sure it's very, very close to our heart, and we are here talking about being gender agnostic. Everyone loves this topic. So our topic is bringing women back to work. Don't you think a lot are going on around us to handle this whole context? And if you look at the whole relationship between women's participation in the labor force and economic, social development is really complex. This is, when we look at the whole multi-dimensions, impact on the economic activity, social norms, educational attainment, fertility rates, etc. In India, the labor force participation of women was 25.1% in 2020-2021 from 31.2% in 2010-11, even after increased awareness about the importance of the participation of women in workforce. Today, we want to explore the reasons behind the falling participation and discuss in what ways we can, as employers, help in bringing our women back to the workplace. So I'm sure we have fantastic, viewpoints from our speakers as well as audience. This is the time to introduce our speakers. So our eminent speakers are from diverse industry with amazing background. I'm sure we are all looking forward to learn a lot from them. Let me introduce KB Balmurali. He's Chief Operating Officer of Transworld Group. He's the, an expert at business strategic, macroeconomics, human capital, and more. Balmurali has 28 years of experience across industries in aviation, ITS, shipping, and logistics, whilst managing global and strategic roles like handling merger acquisitions, change management. Welcome, Balmurali. So,
thank you, Runa.
Welcome. So our next speaker is Neeti Sharma, co-founder and president, Team Liz EdTech. Neeti Sharma was recently featured among the top 100 women leaders globally in tech space by Hunan LQ, a proven business leader with 30 plus years rich experience and diverse experience with government bodies and educational institutions. Welcome, Neeti.
Thanks, Runa.
Our next speaker is Raj Tanwar. He's the Chief Strategy Officer and HR Head at Advantage Club, working across diverse industries such as IT, ITS, engineering, manufacturing, oil and gas, and pharmaceuticals, to name a few, over his 20 years of career. Raj is also participant of multiple awards, the most recent one being the Great People Manager Award, Great Manager Institute and Forbes India 2020, and TAPI Young HR Leader Award 2020, People, Business and Economic Times 2020. The list is long. I think I have to stop here. Welcome, Raj.
Thank you so much, Runa, for such a warm welcome. I appreciate that.
Amazing. So we always make it very, very interesting conversation for our audience, and especially when we are looking at post-pandemic era where things are changing for everyone. Why not to ensure a diverse workplace? Why not to ensure bringing more and more equality? And that is why probably this pertinent topic has come across to us. And we are deliberating today. And I would be asking certain questions which has come from to us from a lot of audience who had been registering. A lot of interest got generated for last few weeks when we were connecting to our lovely audience and who were very, very interested to know what is the perspective of our eminent speakers. So my first question to you all would be, despite the policy push, participation rates are low. What do you think are the reasons for the falling female labor force participation rate? Who would like to go first? Murli, you would want to take it?
Sure, Dr. Runa. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Very, very interesting topic. I would like to start with a quote by Swami Vivekananda. He had said that if you educate a man, you're educating one person, and when you educate a girl, you're educating a civilization. Similarly, in a work concept, a man is employed, definitely, he may be the breadwinner for the family, but if a woman is gainfully employed, then the entire family, the larger ecosystem develops. So as far as India is concerned, like from the statistics, what you mentioned, close than two-thirds of our women folk are not gainfully employed. I mean, employed in the sense there is a difference between employed and occupied. In terms of the labor force, still two-thirds of the women folk are not employed. And any growth for our country, maybe the GDP may grow, but unless there is an inclusive growth where the entire family ecosystem is employed, the real growth will not happen because there are various factors. Let us start with the family micro level. Generally, we are a patriarchal society. Personally, I feel, this distinction of patriarchal, matriarchal, what we should have as a human society. So when you have a patriarchal kind of a setup, you always find that a man is earning more, a man is running the family, as a result of which there is a hierarchy in the family. So you have the women who are more like a service provider in the family. I think that has to change. So there are three aspects basically when we talk about including women in the workforce. It's not that the employers alone need to uh, have measures where more women are employed. I think this change has to happen from the social level, the micro level where the whole approach of the family that a man is a breadwinner, that has to change. A lot has happened in the cities, in the tier one and tier two cities, but I feel that even today, as we talk in the rural areas, many of the families feel that it is below a dignity that a girl in the house has to work. Maybe she's an engineer or a chartered accountant, but when it comes to work, they say that shadi karana hai ladki ka. I think that is where the change has to happen. And the second part is on the physical aspects. Still today, in terms of safety of women, we are not at par with many of the countries. Like I see in Dubai that women can walk around at 2 o'clock in the night without any fear. There are women working round the clock. But let us be honest. Is it possible in India that a woman can walk fearlessly at 2 in the night if she has got a night shift? Even today, I think that is a big change in the physical factors we need to bring about. And of course, in terms of corporates, definitely, we have come a long way from what it was before in terms of increasing the women participation. But then again, the corporate policy, still a lot more can be done, taking into consideration the current realities on the ground, how we can enable women to come forward and work. So these are, three complex approaches we should take. And second, one more important thing is while we are talking about women participation in workforce, we need to also look at women in the rural areas and women in urban areas. Because, these are two different segments of population we are talking about. And a large segment of the population is based in the rural areas. So as we go forward, there are many more thoughts I would like to share, but I would now leave it to the other panelists to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Balmurali. I think you have really helped us to set the right context, especially the distribution of women labor in rural and urban. And definitely we would dive into that aspect. And of course, the way you have also segmented how corporate, how society, how, as family, we can look at empowering women. I think that was a very, very strong point. Thank you for bringing that up. So I'm going to go to Niti to bring some diverse opinion. So Niti, over to you.
Thanks, Runa. And yeah, I think what Murali said about the bifurcation between rural and urban women workforce, I would actually put another angle to it in terms of formal women workforce and informal women workforce. Because informally, women are actually much more employed than what men are in India and worldwide. But gainfully employed, are they getting the right wages? I think those are questions that all of us can keep answers, right? But to add to the statistics, Runa, what you mentioned at the start of our conversation, let's also understand, and I'll first focus on the formal women workforce data that we have, is that 40 out of the 100 kids who pass out from graduate schools in India today are women. Okay, out of the 40 girls who are actually completing their graduation studies, only 8 of them end up getting into formal employment. And out of the 8, only 4 continue beyond the third year, which means 4 out of every 8 girls are actually dropping out of formal workforce within the 3 to 4 year time frame. And reasons are largely personal, right? Marriage, childcare, elderly care, family shifting. So there are all these reasons. So if you see that the percentage of women at workforce at an entry level is much, much higher than as we start growing up into mid-management, leadership. I mean, management is, let's say, about 8 to 10%, and at the CXO level, it's only about 1%. Or the CEO level, it's only 1% of women representation in the country. And it's purely because of various factors, right? I mean, Murli dwelled on a couple of them, but a lot of it is social, a lot of it is infra related. I'll give you a classic example. We were trying to work with a certain state in the country, and I'll name the state. And there were these organizations, we were MSMEs and SMEs, we were trying to say, why don't you deploy women? Because you're not getting enough talent at your workplace. And when we started sending these children to for interviews, we realized that many of these MSMEs and SMEs did not even have a separate washroom for women. So if you don't have as basic as that as an infra, how do you expect women workforce? So while policy is, yes, policy is saying inclusion, policy is saying more women on the board of organizations, right? But where are we mandating that there has to be these kind of equal infrastructure, safety, right? Policies around safety, security of women. I mean, Karnataka had that thing about many years ago that after 8 o'clock, no women can stay inside an office premise because of safety reasons. Now, with the moment you do that, employers are actually deferring hiring women. They rather hire men because, okay, at least if he's staying till 9 or 10 in the night, I don't have other issues to take care of. So I think those are policy issues that one has to look at rather than just issuing fatwas or mandates or quotas saying that you need X percentage of women in the workforce. I think there has to be an enabling environment that has to be created. Otherwise, these policies really make no sense to anyone.
Excellent, Niti. I think the statistics you mentioned, even if they're shocking, but I think they're eye-openers. And we should all start looking at them very, very seriously. And all the movements all of you are doing through your thought leadership, through your various initiatives. So proud to have Raj with us, who had been awarded, recent times for his good work. And Raj, I'm very, very sure you would bring a very strong perspective. Even when I was listening to Niti, she talked about infra, basic, requirement. You know what? I think beyond that, we have to also look at hygiene. How do we teach in the family? Because now we are going to be gender agnostic. I remember in one of the organization, people said, Runa, you have male toilet, female toilet. What about people who are into LGBTQ? So I guess we are getting more and more gender agnostic. So hygiene can be added as a teaching point by family. So that I wanted to bring. But I think, Raj, you are going to surely put a lot of highlights from your experience. Over to you, Raj. You are on mute, Raj.
Can you hear me, Runa? I
Yes.
just wanted to confirm. Okay, thank you so much, Runa, for looping me in. I'd like to start by statistics and then talk about why participation is low. So a very important statistics, which is LFPR, which is labor force participation rate. It is often observed by McKinsey and a couple of large consulting firms, including UNDP, which clearly said that, and you mentioned a part of it, that the participation of women, which was way back in 2004-5, was as high as 42.7%, phenomenally dropped to only 25% in 2021. When the factors were looked upon, obviously 83% of factors were shockingly because of discrimination, and various kind of discrimination, as Niti so beautifully explained, at different facets of life, that women face challenges at the level of education, at the level of making career choices, so on and so forth. There are 17% which also attributed to the fact that education and experience was not adequate. And that combined together contributed a large dip in participation, followed by pandemic. We cannot forget pandemic as an important event in our life. And when I was talking about, in fact, I myself, as a HR leader a couple of years back, when I was handling a workforce of more than 100,000 employees across a very large employer, an important factor came to my consideration while I was preparing a policy on pandemic, that in 2019, there was a survey which was conducted for women, which was just before pandemic, and 2020, when the pandemic just started, another survey was conducted. And you will be shocked to learn that 38% increase was found in depression in women in particular, 73% increase in exhaustion, and 44% increase in anxiety. And this all happened because of various factors that I'm going to talk about. As women are expected to play a very, very important role, but at the same time taken to be granted that they have to do it. A role of a care, hygiene taker, somebody who will take off errands, medical, education, sanitation, and goes on and on. And other than that, they have to take care of their work, they have to take care of their aspirations, so on and so forth. And that multiplies. Rather, on the other side, there is less of a support which is available. And more so ever during pandemic, we have seen enough an empty number of issues coming of domestic violation, isolation, because they don't have anybody to go back and they can share what's happening in their life, mental stress, and finally, they have to make a choice in between their own happiness and work life, and they end up, choosing a life which is not something they would want to opt for and leave their career. And that's what increased to a larger dip in participation rate. Before I conclude, I'd like to mention one more important factor, that 1/3 of, in fact, it's the other way around, 2/3 of our entire population actually lives in urban India. And in urban India, there is a very high amount of disparity. And the reason I'm supporting this answer with statistics everywhere is because statistics play a very important role in understanding why it is happening. The average earning income of a man in urban India is 16,000 rupees up and down. But exactly if we compare that, an urban India woman is today earning only 6,500 to 7,000 rupees, which is almost 2.5 times less. Now, that is a huge disparity and discrimination, which I was talking about, other than other factors which contribute to it. So a society which is so disproportionate, whether it's in terms of care, in terms of pay, in terms of policy, in terms of infrastructure, and more so ever as design, it is bound to happen that the participation is going to go low. So it's evidently clear with both statistics and reality that this is going to happen unless we fix it by design. It is going to be low, and it's a sad state to be in.
Absolutely great thoughts, Raj. I think you talked about probably we have to go back to the root, the design segment rather than touching the surface. I guess that was a very, very, directional point you made, and especially when you gave the stats over and above what Niti shared with us. And some shocking, again, insights, especially you talked about, what happened, the marked change from 2019 to 2020, those numbers you mentioned. And we have also noticed, regarding a shocking area, which is job loss. So when it comes to comparing men, women lost job, we had been hearing a lot why women need jobs. When there's a stereotype, there is a baggage we carry that लड़कियों को job की क्या जरूरत है? You are from a very well-off family. Your dad does so well. Your husband does so well. Even at the particular age, your son is doing so well. So why do you need to work? आराम करो, chill करो. So I think that is one perspective, but I'm sure pandemic brought a very different viewpoint, especially if you compare an unemployment rate of 17% amongst women compared to 6% amongst men. So why this disproportionate numbers? What are your thoughts around that? So who would like to go first now?
So if I may, Runa, so, basically, what I've been also interacting with a lot of people, especially in the cities, in the cities, typically, you have people staying in very small, one room kitchen or a 2-room kitchen kind of a thing. And what happened during pandemic was, if both the husband and wife were working, you had only one room where they need to take calls, or you have the children going to school. Uh, that is one factor. The second factor, of course, that what happens there is, there was a choice which people had to make, that one of them work and one of them need to resign. And again, as I told in the initial stages, because of the type of society we live in, it is, it is taken for granted that the preference for work has to be for a man and not for a woman. So woman automatically had to sacrifice her career or her growth because to accommodate the man in the family to basically, get gainfully employed. The second factor is, in terms of our society, where right from getting up in the morning, cooking food, childcare is one of the factors you mentioned. All these things, it is taken for granted that the woman has to do. So when there was no house help available, when you couldn't outsource ordering food from outside, it was taken for granted that the woman in the house has to take care of all these responsibilities. And this is where I think, because of various factors like this, women automatically had to give up their careers, and that is where you see that drop in the workforce is happening. The employment rate is happening. The second part is, if you look at the rural India again, women were doing more of physical job, and due to this COVID protocols, they couldn't travel outside and they were restrained being at home. Whereas the men folk, in spite of the COVID protocols, could stay in certain places or certain farms, they could stay overnight. So these factors also contributed a lot in terms of the reduction of women folk at work.
I would like to add to what Murli is saying, Runa, is, in rural India, obviously, this whole issue about women not being able to travel out, not being able to come out. But along with that, let's also understand where is the highest volume of women workforce employed today. They're largely in schools, childcare, retail, manufacturing, right? And that's where the highest volumes are. Of course, there is IT, ITS, there is FMCG, there are those other sectors also, but the ones that employ women workforce are these ones that I named early. During the pandemic, obviously these sectors got impacted very badly because there was nothing physical. There were no shops which are open, no schools which are open. Nobody was sending, their kids to for childcare anymore. So obviously that impacted the number of women losing jobs for sure. And of course, there are these elements about between a man and a woman, between a boy and a girl, who takes precedence of holding the opportunity. If it's just one job, the answer is the male candidate and not the female candidate. But also in rural India, a lot of women actually lost their work, like the Manrega policy, because there were a lot of men who migrated back to their hometowns. They ended up getting those manual labor work as compared to women who were earlier doing it, because there were, not those many men in rural India left to doing the work. So there are, and along with that, obviously the social aspects kicked in. Who's going to take care of home? There was no maids coming in. So, the women ended up doing everything at home. And when there is this decision even an employer has to take, and I don't agree that it's across sectors, it's in few sectors, it's with few organizations, it may be at certain levels, is, do I have to keep a male employee with me or a female employee with me? I think chances are that the male employee stays for a longer duration as compared to the female employee. uh, I can also give you examples where it's the reverse in some sectors. But I think for the conversation we're holding today, which is very high volume women workforce, I think the dip purely happened because of multiple reasons. And somewhere, if we start answering the social aspect of it, I think the others gradually will start improving by itself.
Niti, I think very good point you made about specific industries, but sometimes we neglect to understand few industries as well. Typically we expect women to pick up, even after engineering, why not teaching?
Yeah.
That it's easy to raise children and look after elderly and manage, husband's expectations and societal expectation, etc. So they had gone to maybe a lecturership or teaching in schools, but COVID impacted them as well in large number. So there were less admissions in college. There were less professors had been retrenched, and huge issue. And moreover, other than that, when men lost their jobs, women felt guilty. That was again, Raj, you talked about depressions, you talked about various other psychological factor, and how all of you helped to bring mental health, cure in workplace. So Raj, we are very, very keen to hear your views. It's a very hot topic.
Indeed, Runa. And I'd like to pick up an experience and then talk about the subject, why there's a tip. I remember we started a helpline at that time, and you're phenomenally surprised to know there are a lot of women colleagues who used to call, and it was more of an EAP, employee assistant program that we had, wherein a lot of women called and they just wanted somebody to hear them. You'll be very surprised to know they just wanted somebody to hear them, period. They wanted to just vent out. They wanted to share what's happening with them. They had least expectation from someone who would come and support them, because they themselves, they are very strong psychologically and mentally, but they just wanted a place to vent out and to just share what's happening in their life. And that was a certainly eye-opener for me. The reason for DIP, I also feel, as I said, lies in four things. And I always start with pay as the first factor. Because if there are two genders, agnostic of which country, which religion, wherever you are, if there are two people working in the same job, why there has to be disparity in pay? You pay me less, obviously my motivation will be less. My motivation will be less, then obviously I'll drop out over a period of time. So I'll start with pay as the first factor. The second factor, I'd say there are certain industries which were significantly and deeply impacted. When I talk about it, let's talk about our offices were practically closed at that point of time. Staffs like, and here there is a difference in between blue collar and white collar job, but there are staffs like housekeeping, security, steward, basic initial desk where reception desk and other people. They simply lost their job because there was no need of that staff, as employers felt over at that point of time. And but there was no, I'm putting it a little straight, but at the same time firm. There was no remorse of even calling them back once the pandemic has become better. We are only talking about what happened during pandemic. Has it become better? The answer is no. How many employers have called women back who lost their jobs at that point of time, and they were working with them at that time? If we do a survey right now, we will be shocked to learn that how many people have been called back again, despite the fact that they were working with them for years together, and even after they lost the job. Were they called back? I'm not sure. The third factor, which I feel is very, very important, which I said, a very important word which is attached to women as a gender, is care. And care is not just restricted to child. I'll slightly disagree, but I agree with Balmurali there. For them, care is for everyone. Care for them begins at home, not only with child, it's with parents, it's with husband, it's with everyone. They're expected to play that role of the caretaker for anyone and everyone. Now, the dichotomy here and irony is whether the gender is just 14 or 16-year-old girl, or she's 61 or 62-year-old woman. Doesn't matter. The care is attached with their gender, and that's so ironical, because care is for everyone. And that's where I think it creates a lot of, and the kind of EAP calls that we were getting, and we were realizing it, that their point was that we are there to take care of everyone, but who's there to take care for us? And that's a larger question that we have to ask. And we, as I said, we talk a lot about well-being, we talk a lot about back to office programs, but we need to see the success of these back to office programs. And I'd say that till these programs are just programs and they're not converting into success, the emotional quotient which brings down the entire enthusiasm low would always remain low. Till we see a change there, it will not happen. Now we can say that there is a 17% lack of education and experience. What are we doing to take it down? There is a Startup India program. Is Government of India, there is a part of it that we're doing, but are we doing something by design, both at the policy level and at the organization level, both in private and public sector, to bump it up by design? We have to look at that. Unless those questions are not answered by design, I feel that this disproportionate gap is going to remain, and there's no way anybody can fill this gap.
So Raj, I think one way you are bringing the points forward, which is to be looked at, diagnosed, and deliberated. At the same time, we're also harping a point that should we keep going back to the basics, which is the design part. I think that was a very, very interesting part, point. And that's how sometime when we find around us, whether it's parliament or anywhere, whether we should have quota. I guess, does quota help? Do you think, look at the whole diversity drive for last 20 years, if not more. I remember I was in Converges, and that was 25 years ago. And there we had done so much work on D&I. Now it's DEI. Earlier it was only women. Now it's more. But the whole context of bringing women to work, beyond that is also how do we nurture women, which Niti also pointed out. At every level, how do you see it's like a ping ghetto and suddenly they vanish, right? So, Raj, when you are talking about design, shall we all deliberate that if we put gender quota, do you think it's going to work? Do you think it has some kind of, impact, backlash, or it can outweigh the benefits? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, Runa, this is a very interesting perspective here. Let's talk about quota system, which is right now being implemented at our legislation level. Now, it has its pros, it has its cons. Now, when I talk about there are certain challenges that we are facing, we all know about the proxy candidate. Am I right? And I'm talking starting from the parliament itself. We ultimately know who's the person behind, who's actually calling all the shots. So proxy candidate is something we are going to suffer if we're going to start one at the policy level. I'll also come to the private sector a bit in some time. The second is also shortage of talent and sight sometimes that creates a challenge. And I think those are the things which will actually paralyze the political system or the government system. But when it comes to quotas by design in private sector, I'm a strong believer and a firm believer of quota does not resolve a problem. But I think programs by design, when you're equipped with the right skills, you tend to move faster. And I think that's where it helps. In certain places, yes, quota may work. In certain places, quota may not work. So what do I mean by design? So let's talk about it. There are programs which say that back to office program for women in an office. Now, back to office at different stages. At the time when a woman get married, when you're blessed with a child, when there's an important event in your life, there are large progressive organizations who have done a lot of work in terms of going beyond what law has prescribed. See, another very, very ironical fact about our world is if you look at mostly policies, which are women, I would say supporting policies have all come from government, less come from the public sector itself. And I'll tell you where I'm coming in from. Sexual harassment and POSH. Until this government designed it, it was interpreted in its own way and its own form up till 2030. Then I'll come to, maternity benefit. Till it actually formally qualified as 6 months, it was always looked upon as something that, oh, we have to give leaves now. It happened. So if you look at it, it's government which took initiatives in certain sectors to impact lives positively. But at the same time, there are progressive organizations which have done work wherein we said after maternity, we will give you up to 2 years to come back because we understand nursing and care is as important as childbirth is. And it's an important event in your life and we cannot ignore it. So I think programs like that by design promote and bring women back to work. Because there is a hope that after 2 years, I'll go back to work. But I have seen that a lot of women, because as an HR leader, I have interviewed a lot of people and said that, what stopped you after 2 years from applying? Why are you applying after 5 years? And the question was apparently clear that after 2 years, I knew that nobody's going to give me jobs. So I said, let me wait for another couple of years till I actually. But when people, and then there are women leaders and there are women employees that I have met who said, and I asked them that, and they started following up. So my 2 year is coming to close. Can I join on that particular day? So that was such a happy feeling that that there is a job security that you already have with you. So instead of quota, I would say give job security. That is more important because there is something you look up to and you join back. So that's one. Second is policy relaxation by design. Niti so beautifully mentioned after 8 o'clock, women working at work. By design, you stop hiring women. That's so unfair. You take your policies up, step up the benefits in terms of transport, food, security, and make sure that no gender bias actually kills an opportunity for you as an equal employer, equal opportunity employer to offer great employment. So I think policy relaxations are important. Well-being, it's so essential, both by design from a biological standpoint of view and otherwise, because, and again, Balamurali mentioned so beautifully well, a woman can change a whole generation, a whole family. So it's so important that if her mental well-being is good, the entire family she's the backbone of the whole family. I would say alternate career options. Very less employers have thought about it by design, that okay, we understand there's a great leader or there's a great contributor, she's not been able to be successful in this particular role given some changes in her life, or she has come back for a change in role. Why can't we give alternate change role options? So that has to be looked upon. And last and most important, I would say, aspects like education sabbatical by design by employers. See, enough and more parents do to make sure that women study and they reach up to a level. But I think after they join the corporate world, it's a different kind of war that starts. It's a different kind of life that begins. And I think that's where, again, there's a lot of impetus, there's a lot of positive development which is required to take them to that level, that instead of quotas, these initiatives by design put them at par with any other candidate and say that, hey, I'm not up because of quota. I'm here because I deserve it. I'm here because I have earned it. I'm here because I'm here to prove my worth as a leader that I stand for. And that's my take on it.
I think you beautifully covered most of the points, and at this moment, I would like to thank our audience. There had been questions from Neha, Nilawar, Sundaraj, and Arvind. So I'm going to take that soon, and probably I have to cut down our time to take view on this very, very interesting, very good point. And because Raju covered so beautifully about all the aspects on the hindsight of quota and what it brings, as you right said, it quickens the steps, etc. So rather, I would pick up the next question with you, if that is okay, Niti and Balmurali. Yeah. So when Raj was talking about various factors coming forward, why quota is there, what policy changes happens, and what is the impact. Do you think there can be certain factor which affects the participation in of women at workplace besides organizations coming forward? They also go through a process in their mind. There are a lot of reasons which they pursue. I think I would like you to highlight that. What doesn't what are the effects of such which are the factors you should you would like to highlight that which works for women when it comes to workplace? Yeah.
So if I can go, first, Runa, I think organizations continuously need to evolve on their cultural and diversity aspects. There's a lot of awareness that has to be created within smaller, large organizations. But couple of steps that organizations can actually take to make this as a better enabling environment for women to come back to work. And Raj was saying that while you may have a return to work scheme, but if it's not successful, if it's not bringing more and more women back to workplace successfully, it really is, there's no point just putting schemes down on paper, right? I mean, and as HR professionals, we all know that writing and putting a scheme is very easy. Rolling it out and executing it is the most difficult part of what we are putting across. So I think organizations need to give flexibility to women, especially post COVID that we've seen. It's okay if women are not coming back to workplace every single day. It's okay if they're not doing the 8 to 9 hours, even if they're doing few hours in office, few hours at work, even if they're doing few days in office and few days work from home. I think giving that balance is extremely, extremely important because life has changed. Everything is not going back to normal. I mean, even schools and higher education institutes are talking about hybrid form of learning. Why are we not looking at giving flexibility to more and more women workforce? See, the challenge also is that everyone's talking about, oh, I don't get enough talent. But with women moving out after the 3 or 4 year window, I call it the leaky talent pipeline, right? I mean, you keep filling in, you bring women, and then they end up going. So apart from the male workforce leaving, the huge segment of women moving out, they are experienced, they are raring to go, they want to come back after they have settled whatever they had to do at their personal life. How do we make it easy for them, right? So one is, like I said, give them flexibility in terms of part-time, full-time work, gig work, consultancy, you know, there's a term that, I've been reading a lot about is returning apprentices. And I think it's beautiful if we can actually deploy that at our own workplaces. And why I use the term apprentice is because these have been employed, they have experience, but because they've lost touch, like, Raj mentioned a 2-year break vis-a-vis a 5-year break, world moves on, world shifts very quickly. We're talking of technology moving rapidly. We're talking about things changing rapidly. How do we ensure that women are coming up to speed with all the changes that have happened while they were not employed or they were not coming to work? I think creating those returning apprenticeship programs or hand-holding them and upskilling them. There are organizations that I know that are doing that very effectively, but we have to do it at scale. We have to do it across levels. And I think that's where policies may matter. Quota will not matter. Quota will actually become entitlement. And then tomorrow, if I get a job over Raj, people will look at me saying, oh, because of quota, she's got it. She may not have the skills. She may not have the talent to actually doing the role. Right? So I don't think quotas will, but making it enabled, right? So like I said, giving a flexible environment, obviously eliminating gender biases, eliminating pay biases is very, very critical for employers to bring women back. And of course, like I said, provide learning and growth opportunities to women. Give alternate career routes. Give them options that they can look at. Today, there are lots of platforms, by the way, hiring platforms that are only focusing on bringing women back to work. But are we able to promote those platforms? I'm not sure many of us even know the names of these platforms where women can go and actually apply for jobs across levels. So I think those interventions will make a larger impact than just doing quota and one-off scheme changes.
Thank you, Niti, for bringing both the perspective. And I'm going to take, because of the time factor, the first question by Neha Nilavar. And she's
So
asked,
sorry,
Murli, I'm going
Runa,
to ask you the question, which is very much related to the previous one. So
sure.
please allow me
I
to,
will.
spell out the question, because exactly the line of conversation we are having, but she has a little different question. So I would like to come to you, Balmurali, for this response. So Neha had asked, what is the reason of failure of return to work for women policy? What can be done for successful implementation? So Murli, it will be very useful if you give your perspective, and others can add, but there are 2 more questions and I would like to take them up before we call it today. Yeah. So Murli, over to you.
Thank you. Niti beautifully covered in terms of getting women. What are the socio-economic changes we can bring about prodding women back to work? And Raj, I think, touched upon the core of the problem, that is supply of women for workforce. So while we are talking about increase in workforce by various measures, quota or other ways, is there a supply of women in the workforce? So we need to address that core issue. That is what is going to enable women participation at place. One important thing, from a corporate perspective, I would like to highlight, this is a very, very controversial topic which I'm going to talk about. That is maternity leave. Let us be practical. 6 months away from work, definitely, motherhood is the most important thing. But why maybe some of the corporates are not preferring women is, 6 months, I pay the salary and I'm not getting that. I need to have another FTE that is employed in that place. So that is one of the deterrents, probably why you see that women are unable to come back to work. So how do we address this issue? Definitely, it's a physical thing where the child requires the mother's physical proximity. And it's a social responsibility, it's a human responsibility. Why don't we look at paternity leave? Okay, companies have got 1 week or 2 weeks paternity leave. Why not look at a 3-month paternity leave? Now, how is it going to work when men are able to complement looking after the kid, say after 3 months, where the woman doesn't need to be with the kid, then the woman can also return to work. Or there can be a work from home option. So what happens is, while woman needs to get back to work, our law is also framed in such a way that a male is unable to spend time at home because he doesn't have a paternity leave. So the woman is forced to sit at home for 6 months and maybe later and look after the baby. This is a very, very important issue, which we need to address. Why not change the way we think? The government has to, look at something different where by this law, you're implying that for 6 months, a lady is unable to effectively engage with the corporate. So
Right.
now COVID has opened up a lot of it has opened eyes for the whole world that you don't need to be in the office physically to work. You can work from home. At the same time, let us be fair to the menfolk also. Give them that leeway where they also have avenues to effectively help the woman at home so that the woman can engage more effectively at work. So it is complementary to each other. The second thing is,
Murli, I'm going to stop you here. I think you should have asked for something even more, because whatever you've asked today and what you said right now is so relevant. In fact, just this morning I was reading about this company called NatWest Group that has
yeah,
actually introduced a gender neutral, maternity leave policy. A six
okay,
month leave for either of the parent or both the parents.
yeah, that will
I
be
think you
really
should have
good.
asked for something more today then.
I think we
Yeah,
all
that's
should
very
clap for
good.
that.
Yeah,
I'm going to
absolutely.
go back to NatWest to compliment them since Nidhi brought it up. There are,
Well,
Balmurali, I'll just come to KBB. I'll come to you.
Yeah.
I would also like to give little time to our audience and come back to you with the same point. If you want to finish it, then maybe I'll talk about this later. Please kindly finish, Balmurali.
No, that's fine. We can take the questions, and I think that is
So you
more
know what?
important.
There's some narratives also because people are excited as an audience and they would love to share their views, like NatWest point.
Sure.
But Sundaraj and Arvind actually shared something you all can comment. He's written from the culture point of view in India, the mother and father of girls look for an well-employed guys, but why don't we get a change here in reverse? How many of them are thinking so? Which will help the women at work. It increases in return. Men also should have the mental thought of taking care of home or sharing the stress at home equally. What's your thought here? Anybody would like to comment? Raj, Niti, Balmurali, and we can then take up the next one.
yeah, obviously
Yeah, please, Raj, go ahead.
yeah,
It's a
obviously,
leading one, right? That of course we should all start thinking. And Vijay Bhardwaj, thank you, Vijay, for your comment. He has written about his organization that Rockwell Automation launched a program this year to bring back women back to work from the career break by the name Reestablish. Also got win of 5 women employees after 5 years of career break. But Niti, here again your point, no, 0 to 3 years. And Raj, you mentioned about they wait till 5 years to come back. So I
yeah.
think it's proving, right? So
Yeah,
what
so
about the 5 year plus people who wants to come back? And what about people who wants to come early?
Runa, I'd like to pick this, and I'd like to answer this in one shot, both for Niti's question and Sundar's question too. See, this is a very beautiful perspective. You all make policies, am I right? Whether for gender neutral policy with male or female. But Niti asked a very pertinent question: why do they fail? And the beauty of it is, if you realize they fail because back to women programs do not have any by design security, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. If there is a woman who she's gone on leave, when she comes back, by design in organization, I'm going to talk about practical issues, she's rated on a scale of 1 to 5 2 because she was not there. So what we did in our organization, we said that every person would be rated 3 if they're not there. 3 means a great contributor, they've contributed in their way. That means secure the place where they are. That's why their policy failed. The second is it's very strange, but at the same time, the way the policy is designed, as I said, 2 years break. It's not easy for any employer to pay for 2 years, am I right? It's not practical. So what do employers do? First 6 months by design, what is given, that's given. Then after that, they bring women back by design at work. So what we did is we said you work only for first 2 hours and you will be paid 50% of your original salary. Then you work for 3 hours, you will be paid 75% of your original salary. You then contribute only 6 hours in a day and you'll be paid 100% of your salary for the last 1 year. So it's staggered pay, but at the same time, get gradually back to work. Don't just bring it one fine day back to work. As Niti said, the world is changed in 2 years. A lot of things have moved. So bring them gradually up to pace. Otherwise, the policy is going to fail. The third is conscious support. During these 2 years, we made sure that some or other person keeps on calling the employee and asking, you're at this stage, do you need a medical help? Do you need an additional mentor or a person's help at your new job, at your new profile that you've got into, so on and so forth. So by design, there is a dipstick that we do every 6 months and check how's the person feeling, what are the support required, because then the person feel belong. And I would say the world has moved beyond DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. The world is all about belongingness, because belongingness is a larger umbrella. And that's where people feel that I'm asked, even if I'm sitting at home, is this policy impacting me? Am I happy with this policy or not? There's a very next important aspect, secure the position when the person comes back. Balmurali beautifully said that you may or may not have that position open. So be it. There is an alternate career option available for you. So pick up an early, at least a year early, and tell the employee, don't give the employee bad news that the role is not existing anymore. Tell them the role is there. It's just that there are 3 more roles available. Would you like to pick any? And believe you me, if you work on this by design, there is no policy, Murli, or for that matter of fact, Niti and as others said, they would fail, because I have seen it, I have implemented it. If you care by design, it is success by design. But if you only make policy and leave it, they fail.
True. In fact, we have a CHRO commenting. Anil Dhankar is a very old friend and a very, very successful CHRO based out of Mumbai. He has written remark on maternity. Thank you, Anil, for joining. We need to change the perception. In a career span of 20, 30 years, a woman takes maternity leaves just once or max twice. Not too big deal as a, corporate makes it out to be. And he also is, actually thanking you for sharing your beautiful thoughts. But an amazing question has come up, which I would love to hear from you, because we have very short time. Share, maybe in 2-3 sentences. This is the recent move by BCCI on equal pay for equal play has reignited the debate on achieving equal pay for work of equal value. Will corporate India see gender pay parity as well? I think we are battling with other issues. What about gender pay parity? Quick one line response, Balmurali. I think he wanted to. And Niti was also, kind of itching. But one more question has come. Can we be short and address another question? Yeah.
I think on parity part, I think our country has gone beyond that, because, when you go for a campus recruitment, you don't have 2 parameters for a woman or a man. So I think pay parity part is not there. What we are trying to talk about is enabling women to work. So one more aspect, since the time is short, while we are talking about man and women, let us not forget the transgenders. They are an important component of the society. So let's look at something which is, gender neutral per se, and look at the larger issue as to how we can bring forth that kind of a proper inclusion of all sections of the society.
Very nice, Niti. I think what Deena Dayalan has talked about, I would love to hear your comment that women in unorganized sector, they come to work second day of childbirth, and we focus on organized sector. Lot to learn from women on organized sector, elitism to ground reality. My God, do we really want them to come the second day? Good Lord, I think the health issue will be more persistent. But nevertheless, Niti, what is your comment on this point?
So it's not true just for rural India. I think a lot of developed nations also have just a 3-day or a 1-week maternity leave policy. So women do go back to work. More than anything else, it's about sustainability for each one of them, right? But let's also understand, as women, we need some time off to, like you said, right? It's a health problem. It's a health for the baby. It's a health of the mother. So we really can't expect women to get out of their homes second day, third day, 1 month. I mean, there are reasons why traditionally in India, we've said 40 days the women should not step out. It's purely because of the health and the safety of the child and the mother. So yes, we had a 3-month policy. Now we've got a 6-month policy. It also depends on, who can avail the benefit, who cannot avail the benefit. It's unfortunate, yes, that in the unorganized sector, women do get back to work. May not be the second day, but maybe the second month for sure. Yes, I know women who do get back to work. It's about, like I said, sustainability. It's about healthcare services that are available. It's about childcare support. A lot of urban India actually lives in nuclear families and have no support at home, no parents coming and staying. So women have to necessarily stay back at home as compared to maybe rural India where there are families. And, there's an old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It's actually true. It does need more than a village to raise a child. And in rural India, fortunately, people do get that support, which urban India families don't have. So I think there are reasons why the 3-month got shifted to 6 months. Does it need to be 2 years? Does it need to be 5 years? I think those are, it's on individuals. I don't think I can comment at large that why a woman is taking only 3-month break and why is the other one taking 6 months, or why is, I have seen in our own organization, the 6-month period is actually after the 3rd month, the women starts getting itchy and starting contacting us saying, is my job still there? I have nothing to do right now. Can I start working from home? So like Raj said, I think giving those options is better rather than not giving them any work. The idea of getting them out of their home, leaving the baby with no care is actually very scary to me. I think it's better that they start doing little bit, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours work from home, maybe from the 5th month, 6th month. I think women can manage that better. But to the question that came in, I actually am not in favor of women leaving the child, 1-day child at home and then starting to work. If that is a case, I think it's unfortunate. It's only because the women needs to survive that she will push her limits and go and do that job.
I think it all boils down to what Raj talked about, job security. That 4th month, I start worrying about my job security. And a lady with a 1-day child comes to work because they're hand to mouth. They don't have any savings. So they have to come back and contribute back to the family. But I think we come beautifully to the end of the session. And what a wonderful, wonderful experience sharing, thought sharing by all of you. It is a time I would love to, thank you with bottom of my heart, that, oh my goodness, how much notes I've made. It's nobody's business, because all of you gave such fabulous points and our audience loved it. I'm 100% sure. There were a lot of comments on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So we would love to see that, the question continues, the thought continues, the comment continues, and we have our speakers with you. If you want to keep, continuing with asking question or, kind of deliberate on the social media, definitely go ahead and stay connected on India Employer Forum, or social media handles. And I'm sure you know that by now that we had a great set of speakers. And any parting comments in 1 minute, 1 minute distributed to 3 people in a few seconds. Do you want to do that? Because we have that much time.
I'll just say one thing, we have to bring women forward. And I'll take a very small little example. Right now it's T20, the fever is on. I have been personally watching, I'm a huge cricket fan. I've been watching cricket for the last 22 years, but I have never seen a single women commentator ever in the commentary box. I'm so happy. And I even tagged ICC that I'm so happy to see Mithali Raj for the first time coming over. It's such a fresh change. I think it's a time, let's accept it. There's nothing called as a men or women. A job is a job. It has to be done with sincerity. And I'm a firm believer of that.
Raj, Mandira Bedi is going to have a big issue with you.
Yeah, but Mandira Bedi was more of a commentator. She was never in commentary box. I'm talking about commentary box, inside the commentary box.
With you on that. Any comment from KBB?
So, yeah.
So, Niti, go ahead.
Yeah, Niti, after you.
Yeah. No, so I think, Runa, change obviously takes time to reach scale. I saw lots of questions which said, it's about society, it's about mind. I believe change has to start from us. Unless and until we end up making these changes ourselves at our workplaces, at our homes, in our social ecosystems, nothing is going to change. I think that, one person at a time, one woman at a time, trust me, the impact is going to be seen very, very quickly. That's all I would like to say.
Yes, KB.
Yeah. Apart from the social and corporate factors, I think the day a woman in India, a girl in India can walk fearlessly at 2 o'clock in the night, I think the day we achieve that, we are truly empowering the women, and you will have a lot of women getting into work.
I think we all would love that. I liked your Dubai, example, women walking around at 3 a.m. We will wait. We should stop saying we need people, security guards after 8 p.m. The moment any men would start looking at women colleague after 7 o'clock, they would start saying, "Kya kar rahe ho? Ghar jao. Koi ghar mein koi hai nahi kya?" So let's not have those comments anymore for each other. So I guess great points. Once again, thank you, India Employer Forum. Thanks the entire team who brought this, very, 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 pertinent point and the topic for us to deliberate. Thank you, Niti. Thank you, KBB. Thank you, Raj. We had a great time. Thanks, audience. We had so many questions. We loved it. Thank you for energizing the whole environment. Have a lovely day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bye.
Runa, for the wonderful